Well, good morning, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Thursday, February 20th, 2025, about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'm back here with my old truck again. And if you watched my last video, you notice I got it running last evening, just about supper time, and I haven't driven it yet. And so when I put my tools away last night, I got thinking about a couple other things I wanted to do to it before I actually call the projects done. So this will probably be the part 5 and final video on this whole project, but there's a couple more things I want to do to it, and let me kind of tell you what's going on. A little windy today, we might get a little bit of wind noise in the microphone. But what I want to do, now when I left you last evening, we were talking about this relay right here. This is the fuel pump relay. And I took it out and I cleaned up the little connectors on it, plugged it in a couple of times, and decided that that's what I was going to do with it to make sure that it would work. I also said that I probably would replace it. Well, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there's 3 relays here. These 2 are identical. Okay, this one runs the fuel pump, so it's on all the time, whenever the engine's running. That one is the same relay, but it runs the horn. They're probably both 33 years old as the truck is, but you can well imagine this one has been used all the time, and this one's only been used when the horn's honked. So if I was thinking about getting a new one, that one basically there is a new one. This one over here actually runs the ignition, runs the computer down there, and it's a different one, so they're not interchangeable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap these 2, but I'm going to clean this one up first, and then I'm going to plug each one of them in and out about 5 or 6 times to make sure the sockets are clean. So let me, I'm going to set you down over here where you can watch while I do this. Let's see if I can make sure I get this thing lined up right here. All right, well, I got my little channel locks here, and I can pull those fuses with that channel lock, or those circuit breakers. Okay, so there's the one for the fuel pump. I already took that in the garage and cleaned it up. Now I'm going to pull the one from the horn. Let's take a look at that. It's actually pretty clean, but you can see here where the shiny spot is and the spot that's not shiny, and I think I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit. And to do that, I'm just going to use a Dremel tool with a little tiny wire brush on it. So let's see. I don't need to have that. That works out really, really well for controllability. And we'll get any kind of build up of corrosion or anything off of that relay. I didn't use the Dremel on that other one, and I probably should have, because boy, this works really, really good. And that cleaned up exceptionally well. So this was the one that was on the horn. I'm going to put that one back in as the fuel pump relay. Boom, there's that one. Now this one here, I couldn't get to clean up with the wire brush that I had, and this one here works a whole lot better. So let's re-clean this one. Remember, this one here decides not to work. If it decides to fail, worst thing that can happen is the horn don't honk. The other one will leave you stranded on the side of the road. This one won't. But I'm going to put this one in the horn position. Okay, we got one more there. And this one runs the whole shebang. We better take a look at that one. Yeah, it's got a lot of corrosion on it too. A lot of dirt and stuff. Not real corrosion, but just dirt that could get in the way and not make it make contact. So we're going to clean that one. I should have thought about this yesterday when I was cleaning that other one, because this works pretty slick. Still can't get into the very, very back corner on these, but you can do a pretty good job at it. You can get in there pretty well. Okay, we'll turn that off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these things and we're going to put them in and pull them back. We're going to pull them out and put them in and pull them out and put them in half a dozen times. And that'll have a tendency to clean the socket. You notice that one comes out kind of hard, which is a good thing. That means it's making good contact. So there's 3 times. There's 4 times. There's 5 times. And there's 6 times. Okay, between what we did and by pulling it out and putting it back in, we should have that thing pretty clean. So now we'll pull this. Now I did this a couple times yesterday, the one for the fuel pump. So I shouldn't have to do it too many times today. I'm going to do this one 3 times. Okay, and the horn thing, it's not real important, but we'll do it 2-3 times too. Okay, now those are all back in there, and that should be about as good as we need to do on any of that. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up. There's one more thing I want to do. One more thing I want to do before I go ahead and button this project up and take it for a ride. And in order to do that, I need to kind of tell you some backstory. Well, this body style in the truck has come to be known as the OBS, and OBS just stands for Old Body Style. And these are real popular trucks. Ford made millions of them. And they started in 1992, and in the half tons they ran it up through 96. In the 3/4 tons and 1 tons they ran it up through 97. And now I had a 95. I had a 95 F250 3/4 ton. I had a 96 half ton. And I also had a 97 1 ton 4-door dually that I pulled my 5th wheel with. And but this one here is a 92 in the first year of this body style. And one of the issues that these things had is they had a very complicated and failure-prone emission system. And now they use the 351 Windsor engine, which is a very, very popular motor. It's kind of Ford's answer to the small block Chevy. And they made millions and millions of them. And they're a pretty good solid motor. But in 92 they bogged them down really bad with emissions equipment. And after about the first year, most of the emissions equipment in these things didn't work very good. And this one was no exception. Now, I don't know what the original failure point was on this, because of course I didn't own it at the time. Now, I've had this truck almost 11 years. But what ended up happening to a lot of them, and this one was no exception, is something would fail, whether it be a sensor or something would go wrong with them, and the emission system wouldn't work right. And what it would do is it would make them run rich. And by running rich, basically what that means is that when everything's running perfectly in one of these things, the engine's using about 14.7 to 1 parts air versus fuel. Well, if it starts getting more than that 1, then it's called running rich. It means it's running too much gasoline and they're not efficient. And the way the emission system worked in this is when they started running rich, this thing had a EGR pump, exhaust gas recirculation pump, or an air pump, and it would channel air down into the catalytic converter with the idea being to burn up that excess fuel. Well, what that ended up doing is ended up making it, calling the engine to give it more fuel. And it ended up making the exhaust and the catalytic converter very, very hot, to the point where it actually melts down the catalytic converter. On this particular truck, what it also did is it literally, the air tube from the air pump down to the catalytic converter, it got so hot it melted. It's a wonder it didn't set the truck on fire and burn the whole damn truck up. But when the catalytic converter itself melted, then of course it gave an exhaust restriction, which caused back pressure in the motor. Well, and of course that, you know, the computer's trying to adjust for all that, but that's not the way it's supposed to work. And eventually what ended up happening on this particular truck is it had so much back pressure in the cylinders that it actually blew a head gasket. So now when I bought it, it ran, but it didn't run very good. It had a leaking head gasket, and I knew it. I didn't know what the issues exactly were at the time, but I knew that it had a motor problem. But I only gave $900 for it, so I just accepted that as is. So gradually, as I've learned more about how these emission systems work, initially my plan was to try to restore this one back to be totally stock. Well, I found out a couple things. I found out, first of all, the emission system in these things are junk to start with. And the second thing is you can't order parts for them anymore. So the county I live in does not require emissions testing. And this vehicle's old enough it doesn't require emissions testing at state level either. So what a lot of the folks in these OBS Fords do, and I'm no exception, is they start disabling the emissions equipment, taking it off of there. Well, when I finally decided to do that, and I started figuring out what the issue was and just addressing it piecemeal, just like I addressed this no start issue. Well, basically what I did is I ended up, had to pull the motor out and change the head gaskets and do a bunch of stuff to it. And as a part of that, I took a part of a lot of the emission system stuff off of it. And basically I woke it up. It probably had over twice the horsepower that it had initially, because when I first bought this truck, it'd hardly get out of its own way. And now for a big old heavy truck, it's actually pretty perky and it's kind of fun to drive. So that's why I call it my hot rod shop truck. But one of the other things that happens with these things is when you start disabling the emissions equipment, then the computer's not getting the codes that it wants, or the inputs that it wants, and it ends up turning on the check engine light. So this one here, as soon as it warms up to operating temperature, check engine light comes on. It's been doing that for a long time. Well, I watched a few YouTube videos from some other guys, unrelated guys that tried the same thing, and let me show you what they did to try to address that check engine issue. And I'm going to turn you around here. Now I've came out here with my stool and my fender cover and my little towel to pad this, because I got to lean back over the top of that motor. So let me show you what we're talking about here. If I get back down here, these three little gizmos right here, this one, and this one, are all part of the original emissions equipment. There we go. Get a better angle at it. This one, and this one. All right, well, when you disconnect the emissions on it, then they start sending bad codes back to the computer, and eventually it'll turn the check engine light on. So none of these things are doing anything anymore, but they're still hooked up electrically. So what I found out you could do is I found out that they all require the same resistance. They all require a 75 ohm resistor. So you can buy a 10-pack of these things for less than $10, and you can replace each one of those components with a 75 ohm resistor, and that will tell the computer that that everything's fine, and you won't get a check engine light. So eventually I'll probably pull that assembly clear out of there. Now that gray thing on the side, there's the coil. Of course, that has to stay. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to pull those electrical connectors off of there, and I'm going to figure out how to jump across a 75 ohm resistor into each one of those. And I think while I'm doing that, I think I can set you over here to the side where you can watch. So let me see what I can do here. If I set you right there, maybe over here a little bit, maybe about right there, then I think you can see what I'm doing over there while I'm messing with this. And I'll try to talk you through the process as we go. So let me set my Dremel down here on the ground. And I got my tools up here to work on this. And of course I got the resistors. And so let me lean across here and see if I can get this thing one of these things loose and see what it's going to take to get started to do this. I'm going to start with that back one. And that back one, the connector on it's broke anyway, so it's just barely hanging in there. So let me pull it up here where I can get to it. This is going to be a little bit of a project. I don't know how well you can see that, but these little probes are pretty close together. And I'm going to need to figure out a way to get one of those resistors to fit in there. And they're kind of long, but they got long tails on them. So what I think I'm going to have to do is bend it around to where it'll fit in there. And I haven't rehearsed this, so I'm doing it at the same time you're watching. So we're doing this together. And let me see if I can get one of these resistors out of there and figure out how to bend it around in such a way that it'll fit in there. I brought me a couple of pairs of pliers. And I'm going to lay across the top of here so that I can use both hands. Now if I stick that, the first thing I'm going to run into a problem here is that there's no way for this resistor to stay in there. Or maybe there is. Yeah, I think I figured it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend these little arms over like this. Then I'm going to have to bend them back underneath. One thing about these things, these resistors, they come in a 10-pack and you only need 3 of them. So that means 2 things. It means you got enough to do more than one vehicle, but it also means if you mess something up, you've got extras. And since this is my first effort trying to do this, you never know, I might mess one of these things up. Okay, what I did, I'll hold it over here where you can see it, is I bent that around like that, and that should plug into that connector. Let's see if it does. Set the pliers over here. See if I can get that plugged into that connector. Now the one side went in, the other side here doesn't want to cooperate. There, I think I got it. There, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there I got that one plugged into that side. I may have to do something a little different. That doesn't look like that's going to work. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn you off for a little bit. You got the idea of what I'm doing. But I got to do this one, I got to do this one, and I got to do this one. And so when I get done with that, I'll bring you back and I'll show you what the end result is. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, I finally got that done and I'm back. Here's the first 2. And I got them temporarily fastened back there. This third one was kind of a booger. And it got that, right now I've just got that zip tied to that. And that's temporary, I'm not going to leave it that way. So, don't hate on me for that. But we're going to go drive this thing and see how it works. So let's close the hood. If I can get in here. it serves you to quit. There we go. I'm gonna close the garage here. I'm gonna try to put my seatbelt on with one hand. I'm not sure I can do that with this truck. I didn't have you watch that whole process because that ended up being a little more complicated, and hanging over the hood like that, all you've probably been able to see would have been my arm anyway. Okay, got that. Roll the window down, a little warm in here. Alright, now this thing hasn't been driven in a while, so yeah, it'll go a lot better if I release the brake. There we go. Alright, let's see how we do here. Last time you saw me driving this, I was bringing it down here to park it. Oh, we've got a spider web and a spider here. That's how nice. Get rid of him. Alright, now let's see if I can back out of here without running through the flower bed. We made it this far anyway. Golly, it sure seems to run good. We might have done something right. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go this way. What I'll do, I'll give you part of a windshield tour. We're giving you a windshield tour of this part of town, but basically this is a check ride. You need to drive this far enough to make sure that the engine gets warmed up, and we'll see if we get a check engine light. I'll probably end up taking those, cutting those plugs off and actually soldering that resistor to the end of the wire, because it was kind of, they're not really made to fit in there, and they didn't really fit right, and I had to kind of use a little bit of southern engineering to get them to stay, and they might not even be making contact, but I think they are. And so we're going to see if this did us any good or not. Coming over here, I've driven on this road many times, and so you guys all know about this one. I'm going to go over here by the park, but I'm going to take you around up by the airport. Meantime, this truck feels really good. Ever since I started doing the, I'm coming into the sun, so let me spin you around. Ever since I started working on trying to figure out how to remove that emissions, this thing's been running a little bit rich, and of course that means that it's not getting very good fuel mileage, and over a period of time it actually fuel fouls the plugs, and I got one bad fuel injector, so that's been causing me an issue too. So it'd be interesting to see if putting those resistors on there, if that actually makes any sense and makes the truck run better and makes it run cleaner and gets better mileage. And I'm kind of thinking it will, but I don't know that for absolute certain. I'll tell you what, it sure definitely feels good now. Spin you back over. Show you where we're going. Try not to run over these bicyclists. We got a lot of bike lanes here. They have a whole trail system for bicycles here. And it's a little too hilly for a lot of us older folks in the bikes, and that's why the electric bikes are real popular. There we're going, obviously going past the lake. I kind of miss coming over here. I used to be over here every morning when I had to walk Flapjack, and since we don't have him anymore, I don't make it over to the lake every morning like I should. And I probably should still go do that, because that exercise is just as good for me as it was for him. This is the public golf course here. This is the front nine. Holy cow, I can't believe how good this thing's running. It feels really good. The motor feels solid. Somehow feels better than it did before, and I'm not quite sure why that would be. Unless there was just enough corrosion on those terminals that would somehow lower the voltage or something. But there's the clubhouse. There's a nice restaurant there called Fairways. Now we're going to turn right here. Someday I'll take you out that road. In fact, I've shot videos from out there before. This is the back nine over here of the golf course. Of course, this time of year it's not green. They actually pump water back from the lake there at the park to irrigate this. They don't use potable water for this. So here's the Pioneer Cemetery. Maybe someday I'll take you on a walk through that, because there's some interesting place, and there's some story. I know a lot of people who are resting there. You gotta be a resident here for quite a while before you qualify to be buried there. And I'm qualified to be buried there. I lived here long enough, but I'm not one for burials. I think I'm probably gonna be cremated, have my ashes scattered over the rim, probably in the same place where my mother and my father and my sister are. I've actually got the GPS coordinates for that. Called Vista Road. We're going up to a subdivision called Country Club Vista. Back in the day before they had the roads paved up here, it was like a caliche mud area, and boy, you get about 10 drops of rain on it and this road would be a quagmire. And subdivision up there would be. We actually nicknamed it Slippery Acres. We used to hate to come on fire calls up here because we're always fighting the mud. But now, of course, all the roads are paved, and all this area around here is actually this is Forest Service area here, but it'll get exchanged out eventually, and it'll be housing. Got a win on that, and check engine light has not come on, and usually it would have come on by now, so that's not no particular guarantee, but by golly, this thing's running good. Figure out a way to make those connections a little more permanent. And I'll do it. I'll figure out some way to do it. I lived up in this area for about a year, years and years back. Airport Road, heading back toward the airport. Oh, I do have a check engine light. So whatever, it either jiggled apart, which might have happened, or what I was doing did not fix the issue that I have, but I can sure tell that it's running better. So apparently those resistors are doing something, and maybe they leaned out leaned out the mixture a little bit to where it's supposed to be, because they might have. And I theorized that part of the issue was it never the emissions wasn't telling the engine computer that the engine was warmed up enough, so it was still running a little bit rich because the computer thought the motor was still cold, and that's what I thought part of the deal was. But anyway, there's a stuff off here to our left. There's an industrial park over here that has airport access. And behind that, there's actually a subdivision where you can land your airplane and taxi to your house. And the houses there have great big garages, so they can park their airplane inside. And if I was an airplane guy, I'd definitely want to do that. When I get up to this little area up here, I've taken you to the airport before. I've never taken you on the trip to get up there. So this is kind of the back way to the airport. As you can see, there's a nice large home subdivision right over there, and right over, way over there is where my house is. So actually, at night I can actually see cars on this road from my living room. Holy cow, this truck's running good. I can't believe how good it runs, even if it does turn the check engine light on. We definitely did something right. There's the restaurant there at the airport. I've had you up here before, and up here looking at airplanes and helicopters and the air show and all that kind of stuff. This area up here in the summertime during fire seasons where the Forest Service base their heavy helicopters. Of course, there's nobody there right now. So, there, of course, you can see the rim. $1 million view. Love every bit of it. Drop on down the hill. It's called Birch Mesa up here where the airport's at. It used to be called Birch Mesa Airport. And they'll give you a good kind of a pan around what town looks like from here. Lots of hills. So I think I'm going to call this a win. I think we're done. I think we're good. I might do a little bit more to try to secure those resistors so nothing jiggles loose. Or maybe they did already. That might be why I got a check engine light. But we seem like we're doing pretty darn good. So I think what I'll do is I think I'll end this one here and tell you, as I always do, take care of each other, love each other, show gratitude, thank the Lord for what you've given, because there's a whole lot of people that what you've been given. Because there's a whole lot of people don't have what you have. And we're coming back up in the main drag, and so I'm going to turn you back around. This is the they call the South Roundabout. There's two of them, and this is the southernmost one. And see that little diner looking thing right over there? That I'll tell you a story about that someday. Right over there, that building, that yellow building, is Fire Station 12. But right now we're headed south on the main drag, and I'm going to tell you until I talk to you again. Peace out.